Hey, Bundy, my family got me a new TV set for Christmas. What are you getting? We're talking Married with Children's It's a Bundyful Life. Hit it. It was 1989. The 486 series of microprocessors were supplied by Intel. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar retired. Family Ties had its series finale, and Al Bundy got the George Bailey treatment at Christmas time. I'm your host, Jerry D, with another episode of Totally Rad Christmas, the podcast that talks all things Christmas in the 80s. Toys, movies, specials, music, and fads. If it was gnarly during Christmas in the 80s, we got it covered. Now, joining me is a Totally Rad Christmas All-Star and Ratty winner. You'll know him from the Tinsel Tunes, Christmas Morning, and Jingle Jank podcasts. It's Scott Newman. Scott, how's it going?
Hey, Jerry, thanks for having me. And I definitely had a 486 in 1989.
Nice. That's awesome. I know I did not.
I don't know when the Pentium premiered, and I'm sure I would have had one at the time. But it's a long ago memories at this point. But I do remember this episode. Of these episodes, plural, of Married with Children. I have very fond memories of them. So let's hope those memories last longer than the 486 did.
Well, see, I can say with absolute certainty that we did not get a computer until the 90s. So
okay.
486 was beyond my reach. As far as this one goes, I remember seeing it, but not until later. So I didn't see it in the 80s when it premiered. It wasn't until the 90s that I actually saw it.
Okay.
The series ended and I kind of just forgot about it. And I know they would show it often, like when in syndication. I just never really caught it very much because I was usually watching Seinfeld in syndication.
Right.
But watching it again was like, oh yeah, I remember this. It's just a warm blanket over me. It was so fun and screwball and nutty, and I love it. And typical Bundy fashion, everything ends terribly, but it's amazing.
And I watched it last night and sat down, enjoyed the heck out of it.
Yeah.
But
sure.
there were plenty of parts where it was like, oh, I don't really remember this too much.
Same.
So I took good notes.
Exactly the same. But before we jump into it, I want to do a brand new segment called Hit Me with the Toaster. So This is where I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Just hit me with the first answer you can think of. All right.
Okay.
All right. So which character from Married with Children would fit in best with the Griswolds?
Bud.
Oh, yeah. I could see him and Russ getting into some trouble.
Yep.
All right. Right on. Okay. Next question. Would you rather have mouthwash or cough syrup flavored snow cones?
Oh, cough syrup. Definitely. Mouthwash was disgusting. I can't imagine eating that, but cough syrup. Sure.
Yeah, I was kind of into that, and
I'll probably have some cough syrup after this tonight. That's
same. Yeah. All right, and last one. You're going to the Bundys for Christmas. What item from Al's closet are you giving him for Christmas?
His coat. The coat that the dog has been sleeping on.
That Buck has been sleeping on. Yeah. All right. That's just a way for our listeners to get to know you a little bit better.
Okay.
But like I said, today we're talking about It's a Bundyful Life.
No wonder Al Bundy's life is so miserable. Look who he's got for a guardian angel.
Loser!
Sam Kinison in a 1 hour Married with Children tonight.
This was a two-parter, originally aired in 1989, and it's so much fun. Obviously, as the name implies, it's a takeoff of It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah, in a very, very loose sense.
Well, yeah. I definitely mean takeoff. It's not an adaptation by any means, but like it really don't get to that part until the second part. Like that particular little section and the whole thing is titled about is just part 2. And
the first episode is jam-packed with lots of stuff going on. And I was actually sitting on my bed and I had my iPhone in my hand and I was trying to take notes in the notes app. And I thought, what am I doing? Why don't I just get my laptop? And it was less than 2 feet away from me. It was right there on the side of the bed. And that made the whole thing so much easier by the time I did that, because, it wasn't like there was lots of weird stuff that when you're writing, it wants to
That you miss,
autocorrect
yeah.
and do all that kind of stuff. So
Mhm.
it was a breath of fresh air once I picked up my laptop, opened it up, open the notes app, and then I was good to go.
See, I need to start doing that because I used to take notes longhand,
Ooh,
and that's awful. Like, so I started moving to my
I'm
phone,
ruined for that.
and yeah, it's not good. It's not good. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I give you points for nostalgia on that. Like,
I mean,
okay,
I guess
yeah,
the
that
'80s is my
sure,
thing, right? So
that seems great, Jerry.
it's
But
seems very '80s, but no, I definitely can't do it anymore. So I moved to my phone, and you're right. It's like you try to type in Bundy, and it corrects it to like Bunt or
yeah,
something.
and I'm typing toaster leavens and all this stuff in here, and it's
Yeah.
like, no.
Oh yeah, yeah. I completely get you.
I even took notes of I took the entire visit from Saint Nicholas parody that he did
Oh
in
yeah.
there, and most of that it wanted to correct,
That
all the stuff in there.
that's one of the ones that luckily I went online and just Googled and found it, so I didn't have to actually take that part
Oh,
down.
okay. Well,
I
I did
cheated
it
there.
longhand for
Yeah.
extra credit for you.
There you go. Yellow legal pad or does it
Yeah.
count? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's just jump right into this one. Actually, before we do that,
Mhm.
okay, so we kinda talked really in depth last time about the history of Married with Children, and we really got into, like, your experience, but just kinda give us a refresher on what you remember of Married with Children in general.
In general, I remember the controversy with I don't there was a woman from Michigan, and she was making a stink about the show, and
Mhm.
I remember my mom saying, "Oh, I need to sit down and watch this with you and make sure it's okay." And yes, she found it crude, but she let me watch it. It was, it wasn't sex and violence or something. It was
Right.
just crude humor. And sure. And it hasn't aged well either. I don't know if you felt the same way I did watching it. I was like, well, that's kind of dumb. But in general, I remember watching episode after episode.
Mhm.
I used to record the audio for it and play it, to help me sleep.
Oh, wow.
That was something I did quite a bit because I've always been a light sleeper. So listening to it, I would play those things, over and over and over again. And
You subliminal messaged yourself.
yeah, I'm sure there are episodes that I remember the lion's share of. This must not have been one of them.
Mhm.
I don't know. Maybe it was the first, because this was the fourth season,
It
at
was,
least
yeah,
according to
season
my
4.
notes.
Mhm.
So I'm sure it was the first couple of seasons. I don't remember doing it as much after that. I'm sure there were other things that I was starting to get into, because at this point, 89, I would have been in eighth grade, and this
Mhm.
would have, I was kind of pushing the boundaries of the kind of things that I liked as I went
Right.
into high school. So, yeah, I'm sure I liked this, but I remember being really, really into it in the earlier part of middle school.
Yeah, and I gotcha, but I completely agree about not aging well. I mean, it's still hilarious, I still like it, but there are some jokes that there's a few jokes you're like, "Well, we couldn't say that anymore today," and then there's
Yes,
a few other jokes that you're like, "Ooh, that's cringe."
there are some things in Married with Children, and I am
Yeah,
not going to repeat them here,
yeah.
but you hear it and you're like, oh, no, 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 you could never ever say that again.
One thing I
Some
didn't
slurs
remember.
for from
Oh, yeah.
sexuality and stuff, and it
Yeah.
was like, oh, we don't say that anymore.
One thing I didn't remember was that there were actually some planned spin-offs,
Oh,
for Married with Children.
I
Yeah,
don't remember that.
I was just reading about that the other day. It was, one of them was for, they wanted to do a No Ma'am spinoff, and then they realized
Okay.
that's probably a terrible idea, so they
Yeah,
axed that one.
I remember it's funny that you asked me this, because I remember um really liking Al's sense of humor.
Mhm.
especially with the oh gosh, I gotta be I don't want to say anything and then say the wrong thing and say something that's really offensive,
I
but he was
understand.
really offensive
Yes, he was, yeah.
when it came to things, especially the way that he treated women and just in general. Like it was, the National Organization of Women. He called it the National Organization of Fat Unattractive Women. Just awful things like
Yeah.
that. But I remember that being a big part of the driver of my sense of humor back then.
Mhm.
But now I look at it and I'm like, oh gosh, this is cringeworthy. This is awful.
Well, and the other thing was, like,
It was a different
it
time,
was, yeah, yeah, but
and there were things that people said and got away
Mhm.
with that were never really questioned back then. And I'm very glad
True.
that I'm going into it with eyes wide open now, saying, "Oh no, 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 we would never do that now."
Yeah,
So
yeah,
enlightened,
there's a
or
lot of that.
slightly enlightened, I guess.
I mean, we can only hope, right?
Yeah, we hope. Yeah, I know I am. I'm proud of that.
Yeah, so it was, Top of the Heap. It starred, Matt LeBlanc from,
Oh,
Friends,
okay.
because he
That
was
I
Vinny,
do
I think,
kind
right?
of remember. Yeah.
Yeah, he, like, came out in an episode or 2, him and his
He
dad.
was in an episode with where Al was trying to remember this song that went
Oh,
him,
yes, I do
and he
remember.
puts his foot down and he breaks the record at the very end of it. And he said, "I think your dad's really gonna like me," or something to that effect. And that one stands out to me. And so I do remember Matt LeBlanc in there. It was weird to see Ted McGinley in this episode that
Yeah,
we're gonna get to. Like you,
and not playing Darcy either.
if you watch this episode later, you say, "Oh yeah, that's Jefferson Darcy."
Yep, nope.
Jefferson Darcy was not a thing in 1989. He
It was
didn't
like
come until,
Jablonski or
yeah,
something.
the episode until season 5 was when
Mhm.
he married Marcy Darcy there, or Marcy, and she became
She
Marcy
became Marcy
Darcy.
Darcy.
And it kind of dawned, because you see
Yeah,
him, and it didn't strike me as odd. And then I thought, wait a minute,
yeah,
Steve was in the beginning of this episode. And
mhm.
it dawned on me that no,
This is someone
Jefferson
completely
Darcy was
different,
not a thing yet
right?
when this episode came out. So that was fun to
Well,
kind of revisit.
wasn't there always, like, some sort of thing with Jefferson's past? Like, maybe he was, like,
Yes.
an
He was like a CIA
ex-CIA or
agent or something.
something like
Yes.
that, yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe this is one of his covers. I don't know, I'm
I
just
suppose that's possible. It was definitely not alluded to in any
No,
way, shape, or
not at all,
form
no.
with this. But you're right. When he came out, when he was in the next season, I think it was like toward the end of season
I
5.
think you're right, yeah.
Yes, there was very much a kind of a mystique about him, like he was some secret agent. In fact, there was an episode where there's a like a guy who owned a baseball team who dies in under mysterious circumstances, and Jefferson is looking at the TV and kind of winks to us about the whole thing. So
Well, here, I think they hired him, and again, we're kind of skipping ahead. But
yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
it's fine. Uh, I think they hired him because they just needed like a pretty boy,
Yeah, a good-looking
nice.
guy. He would have been
Exactly.
known from what was the
Revenge of the Nerds is what I remembered him most from.
what's the island? The Wasn't it Fantasy Island or the Love Boat or something like that he would have been on?
Could be. I honestly,
I'm pretty sure he
I
was
remember
on
him.
I'm pretty sure he was a bartender on Love Boat,
Oh, maybe.
but I don't know that for
Well, wasn't
certain.
Isaac the bartender? I don't know. Maybe you could.
Okay.
You're probably right. All I remember is that he was the head of the Alphas from
I
from
don't remember
Revenge
that
of the
because I
Nerds.
didn't see Revenge of the Nerds until much
Oh,
later,
I
because I
gotcha.
I think that would have been one that my parents were like, no, you shouldn't be, it was either that or Porky's, that kind of thing, where they
Yeah,
were
and I
like,
remember
no, no,
watching
no.
both of those at like friends' houses.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I definitely did not see it at
Sorry, mom.
home. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Does
but
your mom listen to the pod?
not really.
No, okay,
Only
good.
only
Phew.
if like one of my other brothers comes
Yeah.
on, and then
Okay.
there's like, oh, and there's more of us.
That's
Now she'll listen.
gratitude for
Yeah,
you, huh?
I know, right?
Oh, your brother's on? I'll definitely listen. Thanks, Mom.
I know where I
Jeez.
stand now in the
Yeah,
rankings.
dude, no
Yeah,
kidding. Yeah, it's
yeah.
probably better though. I mentioned things about my mom's cooking and stuff on Christmas morning, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't need to tell her about this pod.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I don't want to hurt her feelings, and I want to be able to kind of speak openly about my family without
Right.
saying it in caged language or something. So
Yeah. So it's not too bad, but Like, I really think that's why they hired him. They just needed somebody, and then when Steve was gonna leave, they're like, "You know what? That guy
Yeah.
was pretty good. Let's get him back."
Yeah, I think he wanted to go have like a solo kind of career. Like, didn't he?
He
Did he
was
do
supposed to have a
Broadway stuff or
spin-off.
something like
Well,
that?
he was also supposed to have a spin-off, which is,
Oh, okay.
again, blowing my mind
Yeah.
because he wasn't really, like, my favorite character ever,
Mm-mm,
like, at
not at
all.
all.
Yeah,
No,
that's
he was a weenie, and that's how he
yeah,
was
pretty
written
much.
to be. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
Darcy was the one
they
that
really pushed that very hard, especially the first couple seasons.
Radio Free Tremaine, I guess, is what he was gonna be called, and
I there was an episode called Radio Free Tremaine,
yeah, and
with
that's what the spinoff was called as well, and I guess it
okay.
was just not.
Yeah, it had something to do with somebody being a DJ on there,
Mhm.
and I don't quite remember all of it, but it's ringing strong bells. It doesn't
Yeah.
really matter for this
No,
episode.
it really doesn't, and Steve was gonna play whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
But again, not not really interesting, so, like,
No,
why
I
build an
wouldn't have
entire
wanted to
show
watch
around
him.
it? Yeah,
No.
exactly, yeah. I think Fox at that point was just so desperate to, like, have shows that they were just throwing
Yeah.
everything at the wall and seeing what was sticking. But let's go ahead and dive into this episode here. So,
Yeah, this was a
part
fun
1.
set of episodes.
Yes, it really was. We'll start with part 1, and we'll just kinda see where it takes us into part 2 or whatever, but it immediately, of course, begins with some nice Christmas music. I think it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
Yeah,
I actually
yeah.
made note of this because I enjoyed this arrangement of it. It was a
Mhm.
nice little fun up-tempo choral version. I thought, "Oh, okay, this is gonna be fun." And immediately out comes in and is just frustrated with the women and the children, and he tells this amazing story about how he punches the Santa.
Punches the mall Santa.
Because they stuck the mall Santa right outside ringing his stupid bell. As if you need a bell to notice a 300-pound alcoholic in a red suit. Ho, 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 all day long. So nice as can be, I go outside, ask him to shut the hell up. He takes a swing at me. So I lay a hook into his fat belly and he goes down. Beard comes off, all the kids start crying, and I'm the bad guy.
Which does come into the story later too.
Exactly.
So it's not important, but it is relevant
Right.
in there. And they do this little thing with I wrote it down with 5 bowls of flushing and 4 roids of throbbing. They must have been talking about what they were gonna get for Christmas or something like that.
So I think he says something like, she said, "What's the family plan for Christmas this year?" And I
Okay.
think that's when Bud and Peggy and Kelly just kind of go off on
Yeah,
their
it says
little take.
I have 5 bowls of flushing, 4 roids of throbbing, 3 nose hairs waving, 2 children starving, and 1
One
untouched wife.
untouched wife is what I
And
wrote down.
I think I watched this with fresh eyes, saying, "Wow, the humor was very heavy-handed."
Yeah,
It wasn't subtle in any way,
right. Well,
and I do remember that. But
back then it
it
was like
seemed
edgy.
it did seem
Nowadays
it,
you're like, this
yeah.
is the lamest, most tame thing ever.
Yeah,
But
it seemed like kind of dumb,
yeah,
like dorky
yeah,
humor.
right.
There was something that comes up later too, and it's going to be one of my like least favorite things here. When
Gotcha.
Al's insult to the mall Santa was, "Well, I know when you've eaten beans." Like,
Oh yeah,
what? Why did we think that was funny humor? Like,
toilet humor, man.
yeah, toilet humor.
It
Okay, yeah, you're
kills
right.
every time.
Everything was a flushing joke in
That's
this.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that seems pretty typical for the show.
Yeah.
But
So we get info that Al has joined the Christmas
the
Club.
Christmas Club, which was a real thing indeed.
I do remember that. Now, my mom wasn't a member of the
Neither were
Christmas
my
Club,
parents. No,
but
no.
I do remember having to go to the bank with my mother when I was young, and she, every week she would
Mhm.
go to the bank, and there was a thing there that would say, Christmas Club payment is due on
Right.
such and such time. It
Well,
was the Savings Bank of Manchester in Connecticut, if anybody's from Connecticut.
well, and Peg even makes a joke about it. She's like,
Oh, isn't that where morons put money in the bank to get 2% interest instead of the normal 5%?
Yeah, exactly. You get the
As much
less
interest.
interest, and I think there were stricter rules on.
I think you're right.
I don't
It had
think
to be-
you couldn't treat it like a checking account. You couldn't take
Mm-mm.
money out of it. I don't believe.
No, it was
But I
like
guess
like
it
a
was-
savings or almost like a CD or something.
Yeah, it must have been for people that really needed a very forced based kind of system in order to save money for Christmas time,
Right.
and needed that structure around it where no, you can't take money out, you have to make your payments on time for it, and then you'd have a bunch of money at the end of the year. Now normal people would just say, I'm just putting a little money aside,
Right.
like I don't know who's that, is it Dave Ramsey that does the envelope system?
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
okay, well fine,
Yeah.
put money from one envelope into another envelope. That's what we would do in modern times, but I remember this being a thing.
Yeah, and I actually do too, but my parents weren't a part of it either. My parents they just had a savings account that they would just make sure they
Yep.
didn't take anything out of.
But the family in this episode is all excited about that because it means they're going to have money for presents.
Right, because we
in
found
there.
out they didn't have any the year before. In fact, he
Yep.
wasn't even with them. He was with his friends shooting pool.
Yeah.
Which is again is
Yeah.
another one of the jokes about.
Yeah, it was some kind of joke about like
I remember
seeing
the
their
look on your
sad
faces.
faces.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
I saw them the next day or something like that.
They were still sad, the day after.
And they make several references to the Bundy Christmas feast at Denny's.
At Denny's, yep.
Yep.
This is the first we hear of it, which again comes into play later on.
It does, yeah, yeah. But they're all excited. This year we're getting presents.
Yep. And so then this is where
Well-
Marcy and Steve come in.
Yep, they come to the door. I liked the thing. The joke here was, ding dong. Oh, it's probably carolers. Get on the floor and turn off the lights, and it ends up being Steve and Marcy.
It's just
I
Steve.
thought that was a pretty funny.
Well,
that was a
I
pretty
think
funny
Bud
joke.
says something about should we make some stink bombs?
Yeah,
as well
so I
too.
fixed
Which,
us up some stink bombs, that's kind of
Again,
cringy, dumb
weird
humor.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you, Jerry,
Okay.
did you watch the movie that came out last year that was like the sequel to A Christmas Story? What was
Yes,
that came
Christmas
out?
Story Christmas.
Christmas Story Christmas.
Mhm.
In there's a joke about the mother not liking the carolers, right?
Yes, there is. All of them,
And
I
she
think.
gets on the floor or has some kind of issue with them. And it felt like a funny little throwback when I saw this, because I was
Maybe
like, well,
they're
this was
ripping
a
him
lot
off.
earlier.
Oh,
Maybe it was a ripoff or something. But yeah, so they say, oh, they get on the floor. It's probably the carolers, and it ends up being Steve and Marcy.
And so they're like, no, let them in. They might have presents.
Might have presents, yeah.
So they immediately swarm them and start taking
patting them
stuff.
down, basically.
Basically, exactly. They're
And I
frisking
do
them.
remember being a kid and seeing this and even feeling cringy about that kind of humor even way back then. Like, oh, that's not how you would treat your neighbors.
That's
kind of
weird.
thing.
Yeah.
That was one of the things about Married with Children was you always felt better about your own life when you
Yes.
compared it to their. And I even remember seeing some sort of retrospective about Married with Children, and people were talking about that, like, whoa,
Oh, wow.
at least you always knew you had it better than the Bundys.
Right. Well, and yeah, I mean, this whole episode is just a way for us to feel better about ourselves.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
But this just sets up the fact that Steve is going to be away at his mom's. And
Yep.
it also kind of reinforces that whole they're going through issues.
Yeah, and it's a pretty funny joke too about Steve being a mama's boy, because he's going to Cincinnati to see his mom, and you hear her in the taxi that's come to take him to the airport to go to Cincinnati. So
she actually came down to see him. Yeah.
And it was another. It is a more of that setup about that not being like a really well-founded marriage here, because she's like, his mother came to take him, to bring him home, that kind of thing. So you little joke there. That was kind of funny.
Yeah, I laughed when he said something about
I laughed
when he said 1 week after we were married, I had to start washing my own hair.
Who was washing his own hair? Yeah, that kind of thing.
I felt bad about laughing, but it's okay. It was
then
funny.
So after Steve leaves, they throw Marcy out, and she's kind of saying, "Oh, I'm going to be all alone for Christmas unless somebody invites me over," and they slam the door in her face. And then carolers do show up, and they end up getting on the floor and turning out the lights. That was kind of a funny joke.
Right. And of course we get another little one-liner. I think that's the thing with this, with Married with Children as a whole, but this episode in particular, there was a lot of one-liners.
I remember a lot of it. It was kind of that was the kind of humor back then. There was a lot of
it really was. Writing
humor.
has kind of evolved. Yeah.
In Living Color would have been on Fox at this time, and there were a lot of one-liners in that.
Yeah, as well. So, but it's important that Steve leaves because it sets up Marcy and her arc
So
later
Marcy
on.
will be alone,
Yes.
and we'll come back to that one.
And she's actually encouraged to live it up
Yeah,
by
live
Peg.
it up. Yep.
Exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, in like a really kind of foul way.
Right.
Peg is talking about what she would
What
do.
she likes to do. Yeah.
If she were Marcy, she would be, all over the men at the office Christmas party kind of thing.
Exactly. So we cut to Al in bed, and immediately Peg is dressed in like a red. No, I don't know if it was lingerie, but maybe it's
It was
got
like
a
a
big green
negligee
bow.
kind of thing.
Yeah, something like
I
that.
did find it weird, or at least notable, that even later in the episode, she's still wearing that. So it was not just a one-off thing. She's actually wearing it around the family. So I don't know. It seemed odd, and you wouldn't see that kind of thing as much. But she's in this red negligee, and it's got a green shiny bow on it. And there's a great line from Al here.
Yes.
Oh, Peg, how do you expect me to get excited when you just rewrap the same old junk I didn't play with the year before?
I didn't play with the year before. Yeah. So anyway, she wants to cuddle with him, and she's repulsed by his smell. But so she leaves, but this sets up the children to come in.
Yeah,
so
she leaves to go get bug spray because she says deodorant's not going to be able to handle this one. We also find out right before this that the big Christmas club thing is $280.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's an inflation thing. I guess I expected it to be more, but you have to also remember they're always poor.
Right.
So even if it was like $280 might have been quite a bit to them or to their family.
So I didn't do it for this one, but I was my son and I were watching an episode of Funhouse from 88, 89. Okay. And each kid won $200. So I looked it up. $200 is about $516 in today's money. Okay. So 280 is probably closer to 600. So that's not bad.
Yeah, and especially with
when they're the Bundys.
They're the Bundys. They have no money at all, no food, no anything. So yeah, okay, that's a pretty decent amount of money then. Yeah,
exactly. But so Bud comes in and immediately tries to say, well, you know what? Kelly doesn't love you. I think, how could we get her back? Yeah. Oh, man. And he goes through his whole rigmarole trying to convince Al to spend all of the money on him.
Yep.
Then he leaves and Kelly comes in and does the same. But because she's not the brightest bulb out there, she mentions that she has, the doctor called, she's dying. She has Bulgaria.
Yeah. It's terminus.
It's terminus, yeah.
The only known cure is a present in the $250 to $280 range, is what she says.
Exactly. Again, I'm kind of ashamed I laughed at that, but that was just a great joke. It was pretty funny. It was a funny joke.
And then Bud comes back in and they're arguing about, I don't remember exactly what their argument was, but it was like, no, you love daddy. No, you do kind of thing. It was like,
right.
it was becoming obvious that they're both trying to scam and get all the money for themselves. And then Peg comes in.
Yeah. Yep.
She said, "Daddy's not stupid enough to think you really love him," was her line. And then Peg says she may be dying.
And then Peg, the doctor called, I might be dying. Yep.
Yeah.
So then it cuts to Al's at work, and it's Peg and Bud and Kelly at the dinner table, and they're talking about the presents and what they should get Dad, and they go through all that. But this is where we get the toaster shakens.
Well, they call them,
I had to write down.
So it says toaster shakens here, and I looked it up, and it comes back in season 9 as toaster leavens.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's toaster shakens now, toaster leavens then. I don't know if you noticed this though. There was snow in the outside in every scene. So anytime they showed a window or the door, there was always snow coming down, and they've always done a really good job with snow. And I used to like that quite a bit. I used to watch this show a lot when it was on Netflix. I would just let it roll, through episodes. And that was when I lived in Florida. So I was always very aware when the snow was coming on. They always did a really good job with that kind of stuff. And I wrote that one down, that I still noticed it today.
Well, and that snow's going to come back later on as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I really liked about this whole thing, is that They really, I mean, it's Chekhov's snow here. Like, same
Yeah.
thing. They're gonna set it up, or they set it up. It's gonna come back, and you're gonna get that fulfillment. So I thought that was well done.
Yep.
But yeah, so they're talking about, well, it kind of takes the fun out of it if we have to get him something. But I guess we should get him something.
Yeah, we should get him something if he's going to get us. So they decide to give him things from his closet.
But I did like how, as they're talking, Kelly is eating the toaster shakens.
Yeah,
Like,
she was licking
licking
her
her
finger
finger,
and pressing her
exactly.
finger onto the plate. It was well done. It was
Yes,
pretty
it was.
funny.
Yep.
Oh, and there was a funny scene too where Peg comes in and she was so excited that she's getting presents. She said, "I can't even eat." And she opens up the drawer and there's like a hoagie in the drawer, and she takes a bite and then she throws it in the trash. And those kind of non sequiturs came up often in this show, and it was pretty funny.
Very Zucker brothers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the Abrams, something like that.
So they decide
But-
Kelly's going to give him his toothbrush
Mhm.
because he never uses
Because
it.
it's something he never used. Yep.
Yeah, and Bud is going to give him his underwear, and Peg is going to give him his winter coat that
winter
Buck has been
coat.
sleeping on.
Which then it cuts to Buck on the
Sleeping
coat.
on the coat. Yeah, that was good.
I loved
that
it,
was really
yeah.
good.
Yep. So okay. Meanwhile, Al is trying his best to get out of there as quick as he can because he needs to.
Well,
get
they
it-
cut to the shoe store,
needs
so
to
they,
make-
we go
yeah.
from their living room to Al at the shoe store,
At the
and
shoe store,
I
yeah.
think we see the clock, right? Like it's
Right.
coming up on sometime around 3:00.
Yeah, because so the bank he has to get to the bank by 3, and so it was like 2:15 ish,
Yep.
and so
But
he's
on IMDb,
racing to get out of
Jerry,
there. Mhm.
on IMDb, they list the goofs in the episode,
Okay.
and in the previous day, he says he's going in the morning.
Oh,
to
he
the
does say
bank.
that. Yeah.
But now it's 3:00 and he's got to get there, or it's coming up on 3 and he has to get there before they're going to close.
So I guess maybe the store was busy. He just couldn't get
I
get
guess,
away.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But really, really funny gag that comes up here with the old ladies in the shoe store.
I do like this part.
Like I remember this one because it's very, very funny. So the first lady it's an older lady. So
It's an
she's
old lady,
probably
yeah.
in her, I don't know, let's say 70s or so.
Mhm.
And
That's fair. Yeah.
You know,
that sounds
so
like-
what does she say? Like, hurry up, mom.
Pretty
and
much.
Al's like, what?
Well, because he's like, I got to get to the bank, ladies. I'm sorry. And she says, "Oh, we won't be but a minute."
Okay, yeah.
And so that's when she says, "Hurry up, mama." And then
Yeah.
this
So it's
older,
her mom.
smaller, yeah, smaller, older.
So we
lady.
assume this lady's like in her 90s or something. And she's like, she looks like kind of like Estelle Getty almost from
Actually, she really does. Yeah.
from Golden Girls. And, you know, you see the time kind of elapse and, you know, he's like, come on. And they go to pay and then the older lady says, "I don't have any money. Mama has the money."
so the mom's
So-
mom, apparently the grandma.
Yeah.
So who knows how old she is?
Yeah, exactly. Like Mr. Burns or something there.
Excellent.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
let's see.
But this is where, so Al finally makes it to the bank.
Yep.
And
Two
it's not
2:55 p.m.
2:55. It's not 3:00 yet.
Yeah.
But the bank is already shut.
There's already
down.
shenanigans
The
going on at
party
the
is going
bank.
hard.
And I don't know how you felt about this, Jerry, but I was watching the scene with the party at the bank, and I was thinking, like, we just wouldn't do this kind
No,
of scene anymore. There's one old guy, and he's got a fishing pole with mistletoe on it. And he's like wandering around,
classic.
putting it in
classic,
front of
yeah.
other women, and then. Oh gosh, what else is happening? There's
So there was a
like
girl.
someone's got a woman
lady
over his
dan-
shoulder, right?
Yep. There was a lady dancing with some tinsel kind of.
Oh yeah, a scantily clad woman was dancing,
Kind of
which is pretty
erotically.
part and parcel with Married with Children. Like
Well,
that
that's
doesn't
true.
surprise
Yeah,
me
yeah.
whatsoever. And then,
And then
Marcy's sitting on
Marcy-
the copier, right?
Yep. Very much like in Scrooge, you know. where
Yeah,
they're-
there's a guy handing out the copies of her behind.
Yes, exactly. Again,
But she's
and I've been
visibly
to a lot
drunk.
of yeah, she's definitely wasted. But like
Yeah.
I've been to Christmas parties. I don't think I've ever been to one like quite like this at an
No,
office. They're
no.
always much more tame. And I don't know if it's just because I wasn't working in the 80s in like an office setting or what, but it's definitely way worse
Yeah,
than you
it's
can imagine.
completely over the top. And
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of funny. They have all these people that are bank employees, and one of the things they're doing is just like throwing around piles of money. And I thought
did
that was
laugh at
pretty
that.
funny.
Yeah, I laughed at that a lot.
And then the security guard, he's pretty old. He kind of he reminds me
Nice
of
little
like
mustache.
who's the guy that was Welcome Back Kotter? The I don't remember the name of that actor, but he like reminded me of that. Like just this old guy, hey, old kind of guy, and he points at his watch.
I know what you're talking about. I actually got vibes from Home Alone 2. The security guard from Home Alone 2, where you've been smooching with everybody, Cliff.
Yeah. So he points at his watch, and Al's you can't hear Al, but he's outside the glass, and he's and he catches Marcy's eye.
Right. And Marcy realizes, oh, it's Al. I'll be right there. And she even like motions to him, I'll be right there.
I'll be right there. And then someone puts a drink in her hand, and she takes one sip, and she passes out,
crumples to the ground.
And then you see the security gate coming down outside the bank, and Al, he's like kind of like crumbling beneath it, kind of thing. And I actually thought this was where it was going to end, but it didn't.
No, it keeps getting stranger.
Or so. Yeah,
it keeps getting stranger. So Al goes back to the shoe store, and he's just like completely fed up.
Yep.
But a lady and her like really bratty son walk in.
Well, before that though, the mall Santas all beat up Al outside
they do
of
beat
his
him
store.
up. Yeah.
They're all beating him
Before
with their
comes
sacks.
Inside. Yeah, there's like 5 of them now.
Yep.
And he even mentioned something about like one you couldn't do it by yourself. You're not Santa enough to come pick you up by yourself.
Yeah, and those lines, they just don't they don't resonate anymore. They're super cringy, and it's like just old dated humor that doesn't work. But the woman comes in with her obnoxious kid,
like a jokes you would make like at a cigar club or something.
Yeah,
like, oh yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
but yeah, so the woman comes in with her just brat and
toys.
Yeah, that's all he wants. He's
and she says, God, what I wouldn't pay to get rid of him for an hour so I could shop in peace. And then the light bulb goes off.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's Uncle Al's. There's like a sign.
It cuts to the sign. And I wrote it down. It says, Uncle Al's Christmas Tot Lounge. You leave him, we love him.
We love him. Yes.
And the kids are all. And then,
but he's got
it cuts to Al. It cuts to Al, and he's counting dollar bills. Cash. And there's 6 kids, and they're tied up with garland.
All surrounded, tied in garland. Just their hands are individually tied, and then there's like one big tie around them all. Like they're tied well. They're not getting away.
Yeah, the kid asks for entertainment, so Al tells them the story. I wrote it down if you want me to read it.
Go for it. Yeah.
Okay. So he reads them his version of 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. It says, 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house no food was a stirrin', not even a mouse. Stockings were hung round Dad's neck like a tie, along with a note that said presents or die. Children were plotting all night in their beds, while the wife's constant whining was splitting his head. But Daddy had money this year in the bank. Then they closed up early. Now Dad's in the tank. All of a sudden, Santa appeared, a sneer on his face, booze in his beard. Santa, I said as he laughed merrily, you do so much for others. Do something for me. Bundy, he said, you only sell shoes. Your son is a sneak thief. Your daughter's a flues. Ho, ho, Santa said, shall I mention your wife? Her hair's like an A-bomb. Her nails like a knife. He climbs up the chimney, that fat piece of dung. He mooned me 2 times. He stuck out his tongue. And I heard him exclaim, as he broke wind with glee, you're married with children. You'll never be free.
It's so good. But then the follow-up line is, now who wants to hear about the red-headed Grinch who stole Uncle Al's life?
So the mothers come back in, and they untie the kids, and they take all their money back, and then Al's tied up with
Al's
the
all tied up. Yeah.
And that's where the scene closes. Like, he puts his head kind of down, and you're supposed to feel bad for him.
But we get a nice little attention shoppers. The mall is now closing so that our merchants can get home and be with their loving families.
That's right.
It's like, oof.
And then it cuts to a really weird scene or a still, and I looked it up to see what was going on there. Did you see this?
I don't think I did. No, what was it?
If you wait, They roll the credits, and there is a still of the Bundy house in the background. It was
Okay.
computer generated. And in 1989, that was a
That's
big
huge.
deal.
Yeah,
It
that's
was a
super
huge deal. So if you go back and see it, you'll look, it doesn't look quite right. It's because it was computer generated.
Okay, interesting. Oh
Yeah.
man, so I'm gonna have to go back and look at that
Yeah.
because I missed that completely. So that thus ends part one.
Part 1, yeah. So
Yep.
then we get into part 2.
Tonight on Married with Children, Al meets his guardian angel.
You know Al Bundy?
I'm Al Bundy.
And sees what life would be like if he'd never been born.
It's me.
She doesn't know you're there, buddy. Just like when you're having sex.
Sam Kinison guest stars on a 1-hour Married with Children next.
Yes, and it begins with them trying to figure out what they're gonna do for Dad or all the different things, and they're excited. Kelly comes down in like a very sultry dress.
Yeah,
she's
like a
his
2-piece dress. And like, is this okay? I haven't worn it
cutouts on
since
the
grandma's
side,
funeral.
Since grandma's funeral.
Yeah.
But they did get was it 20% off?
He knocked 20% off the embalming.
The embalming.
Yeah.
I like that joke. I did.
I like that joke, and I did see in the goofs that Al references his mother later on in other seasons. So
Oh, really?
So the fact that she was dead may not have actually been, but whatever. So just little continuity errors there. But I like that they're making snow cones for Daddy.
Yes, so they're making snow cones, and it's finally starting to feel like Christmas, but they can't do it without Bud. And it's because Bud is the one that has the shovel that's shoveling actual snow for snow
Yeah,
cones.
and it looked like kind of like a horse shovel. Like it was
Yeah.
really gross looking. And
It really
he brings the
was.
shovel in, and he dumps it in a bowl on the table.
Yeah. And
And what does
Peg
she
starts
say?
scooping. She starts scooping them. Let's see.
She says,
She
"Who wants
says,
lime?"
Yeah, who wants lime? And so Kelly says, I do.
Yeah,
And
okay.
so hand me the mouthwash. So
Yeah.
they use mouthwash.
Yeah, and they pour it in, and it looks just like a snow cone.
It
So
looks like a real
gross.
snow cone. It really does. And so then Bud says he wants cherry. So she's
Yep.
like, okay,
the
hand
cough
me the
syrup."
cough syrup.
I don't know about you, Jerry, but I loved Dimetap back then, so I would have
Yes,
been
I
really
did
happy
too.
with it.
Yes.
Man,
Yes.
I would have been happy with a Dimetap snow cone back then. That grape color, woo!
That would have been good. I would have taken that any day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they made that stuff taste too good. So Al comes home,
Mhm.
and they start the gimme, gimme, gimme.
Yes, they really do.
Yep.
They notice also, however, that he doesn't have anything in his hands, and he goes to immediately sit down on the couch where he
That's
starts
right.
talking to them, lecturing them really about the true meaning
Yeah,
of
admonishing
Christmas.
them for forgetting the true meaning of Christmas. And Kelly has a great line here. She says, "I think something's rotten in the state of Denver, Mom."
Oh, Kelly. I love how much they play up her, quote unquote dumb
Yeah.
blondness.
Yep.
It's
And Peg has a line. She says, "He does have that just plugged the toilet grin on his face."
He does, yeah.
She says, "Enough of this loving family crap. What did you do?"
Well, I like how Kelly also says, I think he's empty.
I wrote down what I liked. The line here was so funny. I went back and rewound it so that I could write it down. He says, "I'm going to be honest with you. I was coming
yeah.
home with great presents when I was surrounded by bears and Indians.
Bears and Indians.
I fought them with everything I had. Then they took my presents and they flew away."
And Kelly believes him. She's like, Daddy,
Yeah.
are you okay?
Yeah.
She's so concerned over his well-being.
Yeah, they ask about the presents, and Peg says, "Are they in the trunk?" No.
Nope.
Are they being? And then Bud says, "Are they being delivered?"
No.
Nope. Kelly says, "Are they invisible?" Well, you guys took all the good ones.
Yeah, if you'd let me go first.
That was pretty funny. I like
I
that one.
enjoyed that too. Yep.
So we find out that
But-
Al waited till the very last day so he could get that last little bit of interest. And Peg says,
Right.
"That would have been what, about 3 cents, Al?" And he says, "Hey, that would have been our waitress's tip at Denny's."
Again with the Denny's.
Mhm.
But I did write this down because I liked what Kelly says, and we kissed your hand and called you daddy.
Yeah.
She's like so upset.
And Peg has a great line here too, and she says, "Oh well, I'm sure there are families that have it worse off than us. Of course, they're living in trees and worshiping sticks."
Worshiping sticks. Yeah.
So they
So-
leave for Denny's without him.
Because Peg says she has $8, so that's
$8,
probably enough
that's
for
right.
about 3 of them to eat. And Al gets up thinking he's part of this. He's like, I don't
I
think
shouldn't have to share, but
I shouldn't have to
okay.
draw straws. We can draw straws. I shouldn't have to because I'm the one that works.
Yeah, exactly. And
But
they slam the door.
slam the door in his face, and he sits down, and
The dog growls at him. That was pretty
yeah,
great.
I did like that. Yeah, he says it's just you and me. But cut to him outside putting up Christmas lights.
Oh
And
yeah.
I like he turns it on, and only one light
Yeah.
actually lights.
Yeah, he
And
says that's great. They hang there all year, and the one time you want them to work,
hang there all year.
he says sometimes I think it would be better if I was never born. And he sticks a knife
He sticks
in
a
the
knife.
socket.
He's trying to figure out like the socket.
And it shorts, and he just drops. And it was a really funny like sight gag.
It
Like,
really was, yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes I think it might have been better if I was never born.
Well, it's also like cheap Fox Network
Yeah.
80s special effects. So,
Yeah, but there was something endearing about it. It was, I found it really funny because he's got a great, I don't know about you, Jerry. I was watching and like, gosh, what's his name? Ed
O'Neill
He looks so young.
back then. Oh, I know.
Yeah, because I mean, we're used to seeing him in Modern Family and stuff,
Mhm.
and you look at it, you're like, wow, he is well younger than we are at this point,
Yeah.
because they looked so old when we were little kids,
They did,
You've
yeah.
Come to find out, they were like 32.
I know. They're like way younger than us now.
But he's got
like,
great facial expression.
well, he really did. He's a master of like
Yes.
physical comedy. But the
Yeah.
80s was like a time when teenagers looked like they were 30,
Yeah, that's
so
true.
I completely get why we thought
Yeah.
they looked so old.
Yep.
But so this is where the guardian angel comes in. But before he does that, Marcy actually comes over.
Oh,
and she's like
before he gets
completely
electrocuted,
plastered.
that's right. Yeah.
And she, he's like, "How come you didn't let me in?" She's like, "I was going to, but I got really sleepy."
Yeah, that's right. And she wants help getting home, and he sends her like to the docks
To
or
the
something.
docks, yeah.
Yeah.
Give him, and she has like the photograph of
Her backside.
her
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
And like, hand this to the dock worker. And
Yeah, some office skank got all plastered and photographed their behind kind of thing.
and she even says,
Look how
something like,
scrawny
"That's
that is."
scrawny, yeah.
Yeah, pretty funny.
Don't tell anyone, but I'm going to go throw up in your neighbor's mailbox.
That's right. That's when he puts the knife in,
And then
he
he
gets
does the knife,
electrocuted. Yeah.
And this is where his guardian angel, played by Sam Kinison.
Hey, buddy. You all right?
There you are.
You're okay? You're doing fine. Well, thanks, buddy. Who are you?
I'm a guardian angel. Matter of fact, I'm looking for an Al Bundy. Do you know an Al Bundy?
I'm Al Bundy.
Because of course that would be
You
his
remember
Clarence.
how big Sam Kinison
He was
back
huge.
then?
Yeah.
I was watching it like, how did we find this funny? His
I
whole
don't know.
shtick about the yelling. So I looked him up.
Mm-hmm.
He was a former Pentecostal preacher.
That I never knew. Yeah.
And
Oh, wow.
when he was on the show, he was 35 years old.
No.
Yes.
I would easily have said 52.
Yeah, late 40s or something.
Yeah.
Well, I had to backtrack it because he was killed when he was 38. He was hit by a car.
Yeah. It was
Or
a
he
few
was in
years
a-
after
a-
this.
Yeah, someone ran into him and he wasn't wearing a seatbelt and he died. So he was 38 when he died. That was 1992. So he was 35 when this episode. He does not look 35 years old.
No, he really doesn't. But then again, it's always hard because he has like the long hair. He's got like that beret, and then
Yep.
he's got the coat. With the because you got to pop the collar. It's the 80s.
Yeah, and his
So-
whole shtick about the yelling was
yelling.
just irritating.
It was starting to get on my nerves, honestly. But
Oh.
it did remind me, he was one of the professors in Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. So I was getting like some of those vibes, and I thought, okay, I got to go watch Back to School again. But yeah, the yelling was just it was over the top.
It really, really was. And so we find out that he's Al's guardian angel, and he says, "Hey, I thought I was here to save a human soul."
A human soul, yeah.
And we
So
find
he's
out he fell from grace because he was scalping tickets to a Hendrix concert. but he wants to get his wings and redeem himself. And he says,
Well,
you
he
know what
wants
kind of chicks you get in heaven with a 78 Pinto? Same kind of chicks you get down here with a 78
That's what I was
Pinto.
gonna say. He wants to get wings because you get the young, the young
That's right.
deceased girls.
You get access to the younger
the, the
angels.
younger newly deceased. Yeah,
that was really funny.
exactly. So he's like, okay, what can I do to prove to you that I'm your guardian angel? So he wants him to sing, and he makes a bad joke about Tommy Tune, which
Oh,
I never
yeah.
really knew who Tommy Tune was until I worked in Houston. I actually worked at the high school that Tommy Tune came from. So
What
that's
was
like
Tommy Tune?
he's like a Broadway guy.
Okay.
It's like a singer dancer Broadway. I
right.
don't know anything about him really, except that I taught at his high school.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, so he's like, okay, I'll give you a wish, anything you want. And so he says, okay, make my Christmas lights work. And so
That's
he
right. And he snaps his
snaps
fingers.
his fingers and they all come on and it looks beautiful. And
Yeah, and then Al says, turn off the lights, give me the hee-haw girls. And he says, don't be a
That's
wish
right.
pig, Bundy. I've been waiting for them to die myself. That was pretty
I've been
funny.
waiting for them to die myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that one.
And then he goes into the angel story. He says, my wife gained 100 pounds for each year of our marriage. We had 2 kids. I think she ate them. I don't
think
know.
she ate them both.
Yeah. I hated driving home so much. I had vanity plates that said hit me. And then he canceled his insurance and hung himself.
Right. After he found out that there was she was like pretty much sleeping with everybody, like his dad,
That's
his
right. That's right. He
brother,
found his grandfather's
his
teeth in his bed or
grandfather's
something.
teeth.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, that's prescient. Like, you know, the
Yeah,
vanity
well,
plates.
Yeah,
Yeesh.
exactly. Because that's how he died. That
Exactly.
part kind of like that one stung a little
was
bit when
very-
I was
yeah, it
watching
was-
that.
it
Like,
was pretty
oh,
morbid.
I don't like that. But it was 3 years before. I mean, they didn't know.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
anyway,
So he decides he's going to grant his wish that he's never born. So it's a wonderful life at this point now.
yes,
And-
we finally get to It's a Wonderful Life.
Right. And so they go inside and he sees Peg cooking and she's all made up in almost like a 50s style.
Yeah, a
garb.
housemaker kind of dress kind of thing.
Mhm.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. And he says, "Wait, she's cooking? She told me she was
She was
allergic to
fire.
fire."
It's such a great line.
Yeah.
But so Bud comes in and he has his scarf and glasses and he's quite the dapper young man and he
Mhm.
seems to be quite intelligent as well. And
Yeah, he's like
very
kind of
well
nerdy,
behaved.
and he's
Yep.
he's like a feminist.
yes, he had to
Yeah.
beat up some guys that were making fun of rudely.
A young lady or something.
Young
I
ladies,
don't
yeah.
remember the line, but
Yes. And then Kelly comes back and
I'm
she's
home from college.
home from college.
And
And he's
and
like,
Al
but
says
she
she
flunked,
flunked lunch in high school. Yeah.
I really liked that line.
Then
That was
they went
another
into
good
a
one.
line that I thought was super cringy.
Uh,
Bud asked Kelly if she's still frigid.
Oh yeah.
And then Peg says
yeah.
that she saved herself for marriage, and Al says, "Come on, the football team retired her jersey." And he says, "What kind of guy would marry her if she wasn't putting out?" And that's when Ted McGinley walks in.
Exactly. Norman Jablonski.
Norman Jablonski. Yeah, we don't find out his name right away. But
No.
that was pretty funny. And this family is all sweet and loving, and we
Mhm.
don't need gifts. Your love is all.
Your love is all
I
we
need-
need.
And
yeah.
Al just cannot stand it. And then the Norman announces that he's bought them a mansion.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
That he's been saving, and that with Peg's money that she makes
Oh, the
from
sewing money.
sewing,
The sewing
yeah.
money. Yeah.
from her sewing money that they bought a house, and it's actually quite a mansion, and they're all excited. And so this is where Al has his big turn.
Well,
I don't even
but
know
he's-
if you can call it a turn. It's
But
or
right
done out
when
of spite.
Norman says, "How about joining me in a Woj Jablonski?" That was just one of my favorite
That's right.
lines.
and they all put their hands on top
Woj
of each other.
Jablonski. And then the camera goes to Al, and he just mouths Jablonski. And that was great. That was really great.
His angel immediately says, "I'm sorry, Bundy, I failed you."
Yeah.
And he's like, no. You got to send me back because you see how happy they are. I mean, after all the misery
The
that
grief.
they've
He
given
said the
to me,
grief that
the
they
grief.
put me through.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah,
no,
so
no, this won't
he's
stand.
like, no, I'm not letting them have a happy life without me. Send me back. And that's a pretty funny play on the whole It's a Wonderful Life
I
thing.
do like when they put twists on things, and that was a
Yeah,
good
that was
twist.
well done.
Yeah,
That
he
was well
sent me
done.
back out of spite.
Oh, it's because they're like the family is
Uh,
just like the four of them are going, I love you. No, I love you. And I
love you.
love you. And I
That's
love you. And
right.
I was like,
That's right.
that's it.
Going back and forth. Yeah, and
Yeah.
he just has it. So he kind of comes to, and he has to be helped up, and Peg's
Yeah.
like,
He's on the
here's
ground where he was
where
electrocuted.
he was electrocuted.
Yeah. And I think like the family just kind of walks over him. They don't help him up or anything.
Right. Right. And so he's like, "Aren't you going to help me up?" And she's like, "No."
Yeah.
Or no,
Yeah,
he says, you know me? And she says, "Of course. That's why I didn't help you up."
yeah. And he's
That's what it was.
doing the whole It's a Wonderful Life thing. Like that would be the Mary, that kind of thing where he's like trying to make sure he's back.
Right.
But Al is doing it, and he's making sure the family is still awful.
Right. So he asks Bud, "What's more important, love or money?" And Bud says, "Money. I can rent love."
Rent love. Yeah. And I
Kelly
like Peg is all cross because they couldn't afford Denny's.
had
And they had because they raised the price by 50 cents, so they had to go to the Spud Hut
the
for their
Spud
tater feast.
which I don't know what that is, but I'm
I don't
very
know, but I actually
curious.
kind of want to go.
I
Like,
me
yeah,
too.
I could go to a tater
I-
feast. Come on,
I
Jerry,
was
get in the
thinking the
car.
same
We're
thing.
going.
I'm
Yeah.
good. I'm good. Let's do it. But he does, when he's trying to check to see if Kelly is the same, he asks, "What's the color of an orange?" And she's like,
Yeah,
"What? No,
that's right.
no multiple choice?"
Yeah, that's
Just off
right.
the top of my head.
And that's pretty much the close of the episode there.
Yeah.
It's like for him, he's elated because he's back with his horrible family and they're not happy. That's what makes him happy. So
Well, and Peg even says, "This is the worst Christmas I've ever had." And he's just like, "I've got my family back."
yeah, exactly. He's all
That's it.
smiles from there. And
Exactly.
it was a really funny ending. I felt like they didn't really need to make 2 full episodes out
No,
of
they
this.
could have
Like
they could have done it in one. Yeah.
yeah, it could have been, but okay, well, we got it at least. And I thought the second one was much better than the first one. It had like
Yeah.
it just the visuals and everything about it was funnier. Like the first one kind of
Mhm.
dragged, knowing like, wait a minute, we have a whole second episode to go here.
It really did. I felt like this could have been like a special, a Christmas special,
Yeah,
instead
exactly.
of just 2 episodes. And I don't know if it was because they needed to pad out for the season. I don't know what the
don't know.
circumstances were, but like they could have made this a tight, 45-minute
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
30-minute episode. Yeah. But
Yeah.
I completely agree. I enjoyed the second one more.
But I was halfway through the second one. I hit the screen on the iPad and I was like, oh, the second episode's already half over here. Like it really
went by
fast.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I completely agree. Yeah. Okay. I have a quick question. If you could
Okay.
be in this episode, who
Yeah.
would you be?
Oh, I think I would be one of the mall Santas. I just liked those
I like
guys.
that.
They were pretty funny, even though the lines were pretty corny at this point.
I think I would have just enjoyed myself at the party. It's just
Yeah,
it
that
was
would've
it was
been-
a fun bank party. Why not? Who knows what would have happened?
Yeah, I would have been. I would have liked to be a fly on the wall when Al had all the kids rounded up in his shoe store too. That was
Oh,
pretty funny.
yeah.
Like, what did
Yeah.
he say? Something like, you don't want to end up like
Watch out.
Bobby in the toilet dungeon.
Toilet dungeon. Yeah. It's good. It really is good. But it does make me wonder, what would you say would be your happiest memory or moment of this episode?
I think the happiest one was when Al was reading that poem.
Oh, yeah.
It's the very last line. He said, and I heard him exclaim as he broke wind with glee, "You're married with children. You'll never be free."
You'll
That was
never
my
be free.
happiest right there.
That was
Because
good.
that clip still holds up. And I know I've
Mhm.
seen it I like on Instagram or something in just the past couple years. Like
Yeah.
I've seen that 60-second clip.
I think for
What
me,
was yours?
well, so this isn't so much a quote as it is an actual moment. And I think it's because I'm a light salesman. I
Okay.
really enjoyed when his angel made all the lights turn on. And I'm just looking at it saying, "Oh, that's an incandescent bulb." And
Yeah. Old
just
C9s
old
there. Yeah.
C9s. And there was an interesting pattern with it was like a pink, red, orange. and then like a warm white, green, and blue. It was a strange.
Yeah, they were horrible, and it's listed in the goofs as well that the lights, there's an editing problem where the light that was behind his head was one color, and then it was a different color in after a different cut or something like that. But
yeah, but that felt really Christmassy to me. Just him sitting in front of the lights, and
it was good. That was a great scene.
So for me, yeah, that's what it was. But now we come to my favorite part of the show, which is a little segment I call "Gag Me with the Spoon." So this is where we do our best impression of our least favorite part of the episode. So as just kind of set up the scene for us, and I'll let you go first.
And I've already mentioned it. It's when Al is coming back to his shoe store after he couldn't get to the bank, and the mall Santas kind of beat him up, and they all take off, and they say, "We know where you've been sleeping," and Al says, "And I know when you've had beans." And I just thought it was the dumbest line. Like it wouldn't have even been funny 30, 40 years ago. It's certainly not funny now.
And yet, I'm sure we laughed.
Yeah, you're right. It's that crude toilet humor. That's all it is. It doesn't even have to make that much sense, but it was just lame. It was so lame.
So I actually went with so Al's meeting his angel, and the angel's talking about his fall from grace. And the only reason I picked it is because I would have liked a more contemporary artist, even though I know that most of the contemporary artists were still alive. So it needs to be someone that's passed for the joke to work. But when the angel says, "But I sort of fell from grace. They caught me scalping tickets to a Jimi Hendrix concert." It's like, okay.
So what's kind of funny though, is if that would have been 89, when did Jimi Hendrix die? 69, maybe?
Yeah. I mean, it was like 20 years.
20 years. That. So that would be like right now, someone going to a concert from 20 years ago. That would have been 2003. So man. What was I seeing in 2003?
That's what I'm trying to think of. I don't even remember.
Probably like Real Big Fish or something like that.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
It's not that far ago, and
but it seems like
hurts. That hurts a lot.
Yeah. My wife was saying her 20th anniversary or high school reunion was coming up, and like, oof, I don't even want to tell you what mine is. I mean,
I think mine's my third. I think it's the 30th for mine now.
Yeah, mine's 94. Close to there. Yeah. Like, oh no.
Yeah. Well, I don't even like y'all on Facebook. I'm certainly not going to go see you in person.
Exactly. I've never been to a single one, but also because, like you see in movies, and they're like these big to-dos with bands and all sorts of things and
cheap cookies.
Like, but no, like my class, apparently they're just like, we're all going to meet at this bar.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well then why am I going to drive 10 hours to go to that?
No,
that doesn't seem like anything. Yeah.
I'm good. Thanks.
But G.I. Joe taught us that knowing is half the battle. What do you think the other half is?
Oh, I know this one. It's get to the bank early.
That's good.
Yeah. I was prepared this time, Jerry. You always kind of get me on these, and I never know. This time I knew it. It was get to the bank early.
It's actually really close to mine. Mine was, and I know this is going to be anachronistic based on the 89, but using debit cards instead of cash.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, just move it over and you're done.
It's funny if you watch old episodes when he does things like run a credit card in his shoe store. It's the old kind with
where you have to slide it on,
chink and then the carbons and all that. Like, gosh, that brings back memories.
Yeah, same. I remember my parents, like we'd go shopping for clothes for back to school, and my parents would use their card at JCPenney or Dillard's or something, and I just remember the.
Yep. And then people were going through the trash, taking the carbons out. So then my parents would ask for the carbon. Give me the carbons. So they could take them home and shred them so that their card wouldn't get stolen.
Right.
It's just a completely different world. Completely different.
It's crazy how far we've come.
But really fun episodes, a pair of them. I'm glad it was more than just a 30-minute episode. I just don't think it needed to be a full 60. So like you were saying, like if they could just get it to like 45 minutes or something, there were a few parts that dragged a little bit, but it was a trip down memory lane, remembering certain things. Oh, I remember this being on. And, my daughter just started 5th grade today, and it's weird. Okay. So I would have been in 5th grade, 80, probably about 86. And it's weird to me because fifth grade is about the earliest school memories I have. I have little tiny bits and pieces, but I remember being in fifth grade.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So it's really weird that she's now an age where I can fully remember being that age myself. And then seeing this episode last night, even though I was a little older than that, I remember watching this on broadcast.
That's
so
cool.
that was just weird to me.
And I just remember Sam Kinison, because you're right. I don't know how we thought he was funny,
Yeah.
but I remember thinking
It's just
it
not
was funny,
Yeah.
back
Oh
then. I was
gosh,
like,
yeah.
it's like, oh, this is the greatest Clarence we've ever had,
Yeah.
Uh,
And it just felt so dated.
Yeah,
So
totally.
incredibly dated, but whatever. I
Yeah.
still had fun watching it. I would
I did
watch it
too.
again.
Yep. I'm
But
probably going to add it to my Christmas canon, honestly.
yeah, I was just about to say, I think Married with Children has about 7 or 8 Christmas episodes.
They do,
maybe
yeah.
even 9 or 10. I'm not sure. This wouldn't be my favorite of them. The
Well, the
you
one
and
we
I did
covered first was pretty.
the worst
fun.
Noel is probably my favorite one. The one where Santa parachutes into the backyard. I do want to come back. I want to come back for the episode where they're trying to sneak the jukebox into the house.
Okay.
Because the whole time Al is sitting on the couch. That's the entire episode. And I like that one a lot. So pencil me in for that one.
All right, we'll do. Yeah, we can. I go up till 93, so we still got a few we can squeeze in here. So yeah.
Yeah,
Right
I think your listeners will give us a little tiny bit of leeway on that one.
And yeah, that's fine. It's what? It's my show. I can do however far I want to go. Yeah.
Yeah. It started in the 80s.
Exactly. So it counts.
Yeah, it definitely counts.
But Scott, it's been so much fun talking to you about this. But tell me about all your shows and any other projects or anything you got coming up.
Well, we're not doing Jingle Jank anymore. We were getting so many copyright strikes on it.
Yeah.
It kind of sucked all the fun out of it. You put all this work in, and then Spotify just like yanks the episode and it's gone.
Yeah.
So I'm doing Tinsel Tunes with Dwayne.
Yeah.
My buddy Jay, we picked up from Dwayne when he was getting his knee replaced and doing a bunch of stuff. And then, Jay is doing a lot of motorcycle stuff now and just doesn't really have time for this. And I asked Dwayne, like, hey, do you want to come back and do this together? And we're really hitting a groove. We're having so much fun. And I think Dwayne gets to do what he likes without having to do any of the editing. And I don't mind the editing. So Dwayne does all this great research and I get to hang out with him, and that's so much fun. And then I do Christmas Morning with Bran from Deck the Hallmark. And that's a weekly show. And it's a lot of work, but I can honestly say the time spent doesn't feel like work. Bran is just one of the easiest people to talk to in the world. We have such a natural rapport. So every week we do Christmas news.
Don't you go daily as well? Like
we do
as we get closer to
daily.
the season.
Between Thanksgiving and Christmas, we do daily episodes.
Right.
Now, just between me, you, and the microphone here, we actually record all of those on a Monday.
Oh, okay.
And then we put them out through the week, but then I have to go back and do the TV listings after the fact, because when we record them on Monday, I don't have Friday's TV listings for them.
Oh, yeah.
So, it's a labor of love, but we have just the best listeners who are so into it and just keep us going and recharge our batteries. And right now we're just about to get to the Burr months, and things are starting to show up at Hobby Lobby and some of those stores. And I'm getting all these emails from people saying, hey, check out my Hobby Lobby and check out my Michael's. They've got Spooky Town. And it's just so much fun. It's really great. So every week we do Christmas news. We do Christmas TV listings. What's just going to be on TV. And a lot of your 80s stuff shows up in there.
There's a lot of it. Yeah.
And that's a lot of fun. And then we do the big thing that we do is a Christmas music battle. So we'll pick a song. Like this week is "O Little Town of Bethlehem." We go to bandcamp.com, which is where independent artists and unsigned artists mostly put up their own music. Just these musicians who just really want their music to be heard. So I don't have to worry about copyright strikes from them. These people are just thrilled that we're even listening to their music. So we each pick a version that we like the most, and we let listeners submit their favorite version as well. And I'll pick one of those. And then we have a 3-way blind battle where we play all 3 songs, and you get to vote on who brought the best version, but you don't know who brought it until the next week when we announce it. And that's been so much fun. We've done over 200 songs now, and it's just absolutely wonderful. I've been fine. You and I can listen to Nat King Cole and Bing Crosby and Dean Martin. Yeah, okay. It's not really new. I still love the music, but when you have to go and listen to, I mean, let's be honest, Jerry, we're wading through some serious crap sometimes. Just absolute. It's like I say it's like the flea market. You're going to find treasures and you're going to find trash at the same time. That's all part of the fun.
We'll be speaking about some of that pretty soon, I think.
Yeah,
in a few weeks.
so much. I've been finding new artists, and there are plenty of people who are making my playlist that I would have never heard of otherwise, and it's so much fun.
On.
So we do that. ChristmasMorningPodcast.com. Check it out. We would love to have you over there.
Right on. And yeah, both shows. And even Jingle Jank, if you want to go back and listen to the old episodes,
they're still up.
I loved them.
We had so much fun. You contributed a lot of just random weird stuff, and
like,
someday I'd like to revisit the weird stuff. We got into trouble when we started doing, like, we have you on and you bring your favorite version, and that would be like Bing Crosby or Frank Sinatra, and then Jay and I would find obscure versions. That's where we got into the most trouble. So I don't know. We'll do something like it again in the future someday. Yeah. But for now, we're finding great stuff on Bandcamp and having a lot of fun.
Right on. Yeah, definitely go check all those shows out, guys, because they're amazing. And you're going to have a great time.
I really appreciate that. We have so much fun. I would do it if nobody listened, but luckily we do have a pretty good audience.
Right on. And on that note, I'll end it with thanks again. And all of a sudden, Santa appeared, a sneer on his face, booze in his beard. Santa, I said as he laughed merrily, you do so much for others, do something for me. Bundy, he said, check us out on our social media pages, which you can find at linktree.com/totallyradchristmas. And if you're feeling like Al's guardian angel earning his wings, leave us a review on iTunes. It helps us reach more people and spread some rad holiday cheer. Now, don't forget to check out our merch shop on tpublic.com and our super dope website, totallyradchristmas.com. Attention shoppers, the mall is now closing so that our merchants can get home and be with their loving families. Thank you for shopping with us. Merry Christmas and good night. Later, dudes.
Beginning to look a lot like Christmas everywhere you go.
Take a look in the 5 and 10, glistening once again,
with candy canes and silver lanes aglow. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas, toys in every store.